Jamie? Okay. Close them up. A rapper slack. It's too tight, can't reach. You're in your last minute. Coming in.
Jamie Mcweeny, getting ready for another day at work and another £600 as one of the world's leading hard hats. His heavy construction work is hundreds of feet below the surface, installing offshore oil platforms and repairing essential pipelines in the North Sea. Working at these extreme depths, it's impossible for him to swim to the surface in an emergency and survive. It's also impossible for him to go home after work. For 30 days at a time, Jamie and the other divers literally live, breathe and sleep their work together under pressure in these steel cocoons. Like astronauts working in space, they work in an alien environment where accidents can be fatal.
If you sort of come from 10 times the pressure we are now to zero pressure in, less than a second, you'd literally explode. In a confined space anyway, but it wouldn't be very nice, I don't think.
Along with the discovery of oil in the North Sea in the 60s, came the stories of the sport divers and adventurers who found their treasures working in the offshore oil fields, building and repairing oil platforms and pipelines. Long on daring and short on training, many of them developed their high-priced skills on the job in very unforgiving environments. These underwater mercenaries could make a year's wages in only a month's time. The downside, however, was a mortality rate that claimed a diver a month at the height of the boom. The practice of bounce diving, sending a diver down several hundred feet for only a few hours of work, followed by several hours of the necessary decompression, eventually became as unacceptably dangerous for the divers as it was unproductive for the oil companies. In Marseille, in France, the offshore diving company Comex started experimenting with new gas-breathing mixtures and diving techniques to make their divers' work safer and more productive. By replacing nitrogen gas with helium, Comex divers could dive deeper without the negative side effects of nitrogen narcosis. By refining the saturation diving technique, divers learn to work and live at extreme atmospheric pressure for long periods, some as deep as 2,000 feet.
I've never ever dived until I decided to be a diver, and work offshore. So one guy, a friend of mine, is a member of a scuba club, and he took me over to a swimming pool, and we put a set on and a mask and a DV in my mouth, and just to see if I could sort of breathe underwater, and that was it. And I thought, well, I can do that, so I've got to be able to be a diver.
Jamie Mcweeny is part of this new breed of professional divers. He invested $15,000, £10,000 in tuition costs and 5 months in lost wages during training to become a saturation diver and one of the world's highest paid construction workers.
We make roughly, say, $1,000 a day when we're saturation or in saturation. And we look at earning, we look at getting a minimum of 100 days saturation a year, as that's what a lot of guys aim for. But that depends on how much work is available that year. And if it's a good year, you can get maybe 130, 150. Some guys do 200 days saturation, but then you're away from your family a lot and I don't think I'd be prepared to do that.
Excellent.
Jamie was away for the birth of his son Danny. As an independent contractor, he's constantly on call to leave his comfortable home in southwest England and fly to Scotland for 30 straight working days in the North Sea, away from his wife and family.
17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, 25, 26.
I hate leaving the kids. I mean, Angie and I, before we had the kids, we can put up with it, and I miss her terribly when I'm away, but I mean, I can cope with that, and she can cope with me being away. I think she enjoys it, in fact. But I do miss the boys because, they're young, and being away a month, you seem to miss a hell of a lot.
He knows he's got to go, and he's accepted he's got to go, but there's obviously a part inside him which is desperate to stay with the children. And I would say all our married life we have lived with separations from the time we were in the services together right the way through, so it's nothing new to us. But having children and missing whole chunks of their life, I think it does hurt, and I think possibly that's the biggest thing he has to come to terms with.
Aberdeen in Scotland, the land base for the offshore operations in the North Sea. The bars and hotels where the old cowboy divers used to hang out between jobs are no more. Today's well-trained professionals jet into Aberdeen and out to their jobs by helicopters, like the high-priced specialists they are. Yesterday, Jamie and his diving colleague, Mike Howard, were trying to take each other's money on the golf course. Today, they're donning survival suits for their helicopter journey back to work and another world.
Just going to get on the helicopter in about 5 minutes, I think, and we're off. So I'll give you a call if I can before I go into SAT. If not, I'll write you a letter and let you know what's happening. Ta-ra, love. Love to the kids, all right? Bye.
90 miles off the northeast coast of Scotland waits the diving support and subsea construction vessel Amethyst, operated by Stolt Comex Seaway and leased by different oil companies for construction and repair work. During the peak summer season, divers and other technicians are shuttled in and out to maintain around-the-clock operations that can cost the oil companies as much as $250,000, £150,000 a day. After getting briefed on their assignments, Jamie and the other replacement divers get ready for their month-long stint in saturation in these steel life support chambers.
There's no fear. I don't think about, God, I'm going to die and God, I'm going to explode today, because if you did, you couldn't do that sort of job, I suppose.
Tom Mulholland could just as well be firing Jamie and the other divers into space. Instead of up, he's taking them down by gradually adjusting the pressure in their bodies to their working environment, 400 feet below the surface.
Because of the pressure increase, your ears, you're having to clear your ears all the time, you're blowing down, just to equalise. And also a drying out of the joints, you tend to get a bit cricky and creaky. I get it in my back personally and my thumbs, but apart from that, that passes after a couple of hours anyway, so it's not too bad.
The 4% mix of helium gas changes their voices as well. But like the other side effects, it's only temporary if done according to a precise timetable. In this case, 3/4 of an hour for going down, 4.5 days to come back up safely. Once at pressure, the accidental opening of a door or closing a valve would be disastrous.
The guys on the outside really are controlling, whether you live or die, if you wanted to put it like that. But I suppose you take it for granted that they're going to do everything right.
Hello, Mike. How's your tooth now, mate?
Hence Tom Mulholland's title of Life Support Supervisor.
They go and sit for maybe 3 weeks to a month, and we look after their health and welfare for the whole duration of that period. More or less see to their every needs. It's basically the ins and outs of the job.
Meals, mail and medicines go in through pressure locks at one end. Dirty laundry, diving gear and human waste go out the other. If the ship was sinking, the divers would crawl through a pressurized tunnel to a special lifeboat with its own chamber and life support system. Once the cycle begins, there's no getting out except for emergency decompressions, which still take more than 4 days to complete. For the next 30 days, the divers must be able to get along with each other and their cramped living quarters.
It's probably about 70% how you get on with people and 30% of what you can do at the bottom. At least that's what I keep telling people.
I think the main thing is respecting other people's privacy when they want to have a bit of private, and leaving people to do what they want. A lot of people just, like Jamie, sleeps 18 hours a day, works for about 6. But we're used to that, we cover for him.
Like astronauts in space, the divers' only excursions from their capsule are their daily tethered walks on the ocean floor to do their work. Diving operations are continuous, with each of the 4 3-man teams in saturation working 8 hours on, 12 hours off for the next 30 days. No overtime, no days off, no lunch or tea breaks. While one team is still working, Jamie's team is getting ready to dive and make the crew change on the bottom.
The filmer's Mike Howard, the divers are Keith Elvin and Jamie Mcweeny, and supervisor for the boat check is Andy Quine. Right, main comms working. Check comms dive.
Dive control is mission control for every dive. They monitor the divers' movements from their living chambers to the diving bell, which they use for the 6-minute journey down to the work site 400 feet below.
Did you have a nice leave, Jamie? Did you have a nice leave? Well, forget it, you're back.
Once a diver himself, diving supervisor Andy Quay understands the divers' helium-altered voices and the arcane language of the highly technical work they must accomplish on the bottom.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Jamie. How'd you read? Yeah, I got you loud and clear also, mate.
Video cameras on a remote-controlled submersible and on the divers' helmets record their every movement, both for safety and quality control purposes. One diver stays in the bell as a safety backup. While the deck crews carefully lower the steel pipes and fittings, Jamie has to spot them in the darkness and guide them into position. The basic nuts and bolts construction work takes on a different dimension in the perpetual darkness at depth.
When you're working on the bottom and heavy loads are coming down, it can be very dark, very black water, and could be diving at night, so it's hard to see things that are coming down, and you can be landing very, very heavy objects, and you literally have to stand underneath these things that could be weighing 70 tons or more, or sometimes it doesn't have to be that much to kill you, I suppose. But as the load goes up, it tends to draw you in underneath it, where it's sort of suction, as it were, so you tend to sort of get pulled underneath it, and then perhaps it can come down and squash you this way. So you just have to be aware all the time of what's happening.
Jamie's umbilical hose is his lifeline to the ship. It's the source of the helium-oxygen mix he breathes and the hot water heating his suit to protect him from the incapacitating cold. If it gets cut or blocked, he has only 3 minutes of air in his backup tanks to get back to the bell.
I'm running out of time here, Keith. I need... You haven't... I can't, mate. I'm going to have to put it down and disconnect. You've got 2 cranes to disconnect.
On this dive, a mispositioned 18-ton pipe heightens the intensity in dive control. Watching the monitors and the computer image of the work site are the client oil company engineers who must approve every connection and weld the divers make. A mistake could mean a future ecological disaster or millions of pounds in lost production time.
It's pretty intense, very intense. You're speaking to about maybe 7 different points at any one time. The radio, the divers, the telephone, the bridge, the ROV.
On the surface.
Roger Dodge. We've just installed 2 sections of pipe which both weigh about 18 tonnes each. They have to be installed within a half a degree accuracy over their length, which is 50 metres a piece. And the visibility was, as you saw, was probably less than a metre, less than 3 feet. The guys that are working on here are probably the best, and they do tend to take care of themselves better than other people.
At the end of his non-stop shift, Jamie hands over his assignment to his replacement before calling it a day and returning to his bell and the surface. Their work complete, they return to the living chambers for a 12-hour break to eat and sleep before starting all over again. The only job perk for saturation divers is that they get paid while they sleep, and the meals are free.
Sometimes you've been in the water for a few hours and your mouth has got a sole of Gandhi's flip-flop and all you can think about is a cool drink. So sometimes I hallucinate a cold beer, yeah.
What little time there is for relaxation is spent reading or watching videos through a porthole.
Oh, Jimbo. So, can you put those overhead lights out, mate? We're going to get rest down there. We'll see you in the morning. Good day. So,
29 days to go before they see sky and breathe freely again.
hello, sweetheart. Right, your entertainment for tonight, as you requested. We got Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Load of rubbish. Blade Runner, it's not bad. Delicate Sound of Thunder, and that's Pink Floyd. You're going to love that. Take your choices. Batman, yeah, we can come up with that one.
Some people go into saturation and don't like it. They really don't like it. It's not very nice. You're living in very cramped conditions with, maybe 5 other guys in that one chamber. No privacy. You have to be very quiet most of the time because there's other guys trying to sleep usually when you're awake. So you have to get on with people. You don't like it, but you have to sort of put up with it. So you can't afford to lose your temper because you couldn't really afford to have a fight in there or, and you're in a situation maybe one day when the guy's going to be saving your life. So you've got to hope he likes you a little bit. The trust comes when you're in the water and the other guy's in the bell as your bellman. He's the safety or the standby diver, and he's the guy that's going to come and get you if there's any problems. But you're not in the water all the time thinking about that and thinking, do I trust him? But you just, if you didn't trust him, I suppose that would be a situation where you wouldn't dive with him if you felt that strongly about it. But I've never been in that situation. Everyone's trained and should know how to do the job. There are times when you wish you were out and maybe the job's dragging, or if the weather's really bad and we can't dive, that may sound nice and you're just laying on your bed all day long reading and listening to music, but it does get very boring, and maybe 3 or 4 days of that, you just want to get to work, and because if you work, it's 8 hours of the day gone, and it tends to go quite quickly. You tend to get into a routine where you come back from your dive, you eat and have a shower, and then just sleep until you're cool for your next dive. And just try and get a routine going so the time goes quicker.
I've got to take the entry lock off you to put the next team in. You want the table end light on? Okay, matey.
The unforgiving weather in the North Sea compresses the diving season into 6 frantic months in spring and summer when the oil companies must complete most of their repair work and installations, and when Jamie and the other independent divers must take all the jobs they can get, regardless of the conditions. The biggest fear the divers face is an accident, which is usually fatal.
The guys that were on the outside who take the clamp off the bell misunderstood an order that was given, and they took the clamp off before the trunking was depressurised. The guy that was in the trunking was just strawberry jam. The guy in the bell was gone. The two guys in the chamber, they were still intact. They were intact in their beds, asleep but dead.
I've heard some horrendous stories through Jamie of things that have happened to other divers, but I think if I dwelt on that, I'd be a nervous wreck. I tend to just shut off. I don't even think about what he's doing. But then he's the type of person, ever since I've known him, who's done something that's had an element of danger in it.
Angela Mcweeny tries to focus on their children and the responsibilities of being a single parent for the month that Jamie is with his other family.
He's probably closer to them in a lot of ways than he is to myself. I mean, anybody who can live for 28 days with 4 men and all their foul habits has got to have an awful lot of tolerance and a bond between them which is probably beyond understanding.
Understanding the long-term physical effects of Jamie's work is not nearly as clear.
Even in Jamie, in the short time he's been diving, certain things about him, his memory, it used to be very, very good. It's not as good anymore. He's always suffering with aches and pains in his knees and his joints, which never used to happen. So long term, I don't know what sort of a life we're going to have together. I mean, if he's going to be somebody who's physically fit, which he's always been, or whether there are going to be side effects.
You just know that you've sort of done something to your body that sort of you shouldn't have done, I suppose, and it's an unnatural thing, and you do feel it. But that passes, and you come home and everything's all right.
For Jamie Mcweeny, the psychological pain of being away and out of touch with his family for long periods of time hurts the most. There's no compulsory retirement age, but most divers stop in their mid-40s. Jamie Mcweeny and Mike Howard know the work and high wages won't last forever. They accept the risks and the isolation as part of the job and the lifestyle they've grown accustomed to.
I could never work in a factory or in an office for 8 hours a day and 5 days a week, and sort of, I mean, it'd be nice to come home every night, but I don't think I would be as happy as I am now.